Hello, people of the internet. Welcome back to TK is Outlandish. This is our fifth video. I'm Teresa. That's my husband, Ryan. Ryan, say
Hi,
hi.
everyone.
So what we do here is I have read the Outlander books, so I'm viewing Outlander as a book reader. My husband has not read the books. So we kind of juxtapose what goes on in the books, maybe where the writers might have gone, why they changed things, talk about character development, storylines, where the show might be going, and get my
And I
view as well.
Scotch.
And Ryan has scotch. I just have water, but I do have this awesome Fraser's whiskey. Everything's opposite. There we go. Fraser's whiskey glass that just has water. But I did have Sam Hewen Sasnak for our viewing. It's a very good whiskey. I have warmed up to it.
And it has warmed you up.
Mm-hmm. It warmed your belly. It won't fill your belly, but it'll keep you from being hungry, as I said in season 1. So anyway, this episode will be 6:04, the Hour of the Wolf. And good episode. I had predicted it would be, we would know Ian's story from when he was with the Mohawk. And yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, and this was like a really Ian-centric episode, which I was fine with. I've always loved Ian. I'm glad we finally got to hear, officially what went awry with him and the Mohawk.
Right, we were teased it. I mean, we saw him at the end of season 4, basically a boy. He comes back in the middle of season 5. We refer to him as Emo Ian, Ryan and I. He came back a changed man, and we had hints of what happened. He had said something to Claire and Brianna about going back in time and fix something between a man and his wife. And then last episode, he had told Marcelli that he had a child. So we had hints of what had happened. And so the episode started with Ian right after Claire and Jamie left him with a mohawk and his ceremony, shaving his head, which was really painful, by the way.
Looked like it.
And then
they didn't have Mach 3s back then.
Yeah. Got his tattoos. Here we have, I really want to say her mohawk name, but I'm gonna butcher it. It's like Wahenaway.
Ian couldn't do it. Why should we? Let's go with Emily.
Okay. So this is Emily, and I said to Ryan, I do this to him all the time. I'm like, oh, she looks like, and then like 5 minutes later, I said she looks like Claire Danes, because I'm old enough to remember Claire Danes, an actor from the 90s.
I have no idea who Claire Danes was.
She played Romeo and Juliet in Romeo and Juliet in the 90s.
I didn't watch that. Well, maybe I did. I probably did, but I don't remember it.
Oh, I forgot to mention, we now have 11 subscribers, which is 11 more than either one of us thought we would have.
Double digits, man. Double digits.
Yes.
Thank you, all 11 of you.
Yes. 11.
So all 11 of you, you'll be the judge here, okay?
Yes.
Claire Danes.
Does the actress who plays Emily look like Claire Danes circa 1993, let's say? Early night. Just that smile, which just reminded me of her in Romeo and Juliet.
She does have that smile. I'll give you that. I don't know.
I mean, obviously, is indigenous ethnicity, and Claire Danes, as far as I know, does not. But besides that, I think they look very similar. So anyway,
everyone let us know in the comments, yay or nay, Claire Danes.
Thank you.
I'm not picking sides here.
So anyway, we go to Emily. Oh, so we flash back to they took a really, I was starting to wonder like how long they would go back into Ian's story. Were you starting to wonder?
It probably took up a third of the episode, like 20 minutes or so, maybe, like all said, of the whole, like all parts of the flashback put together. 20 minutes, that's a long time for like a single piece of narrative.
I mean, I'm not complaining. I was just surprised how long it was. But in the book, it's told in flashback. Ian tells Brianna while they go out. He said they're going out hunting, but Ian shows her what he finds is a mammoth fossil. Which when I read that, I remember thinking, how are they going to film that? Are they going to like CGI a giant mammoth fossil? So I'm not surprised at all that they didn't go down that road.
No mammoths in Outlander. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So in part of his story, he tells to Brianna. Part of his story, he tells to Marcelly, which he did allude to in the show. But Ryan, did you notice that um, when Ian and Emily got together, the I guess chief he would be said the words "flesh on my flesh, bone on my bone," which is the same words
Yep.
that Jamie said to Claire.
Yep. Whenever they got married, yeah, flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone. That was a good
Yeah,
line.
yeah. You know what? Always, what the first time I heard that, and Jamie says, "I know it's a little bit pagan," and I'm like, "Is that from the Bible?" And I looked it up, and it is. It's from Genesis, which is weird that Jamie wouldn't know that, but that's just a random thought. um, so we get their backstory, and the other thing that reminded me of Jamie and Claire was, she lost a baby, and I had wondered if Ian telling Jamie if they would bond over Jamie losing faith, and Ian, just like Jamie, didn't never saw faith. Um, Ian never saw it. Was it Isabel?
Yeah,
Isabel
Ishabel. Yeah, that sounds
that he
close.
lost. Mm-hmm.
We don't see.
So
We only watch this episode, like these episodes, once before we do this recording, so we don't get a chance
right,
to practice all these new names that they throw at us.
right, and I wish I could. If I didn't have three small children to take care of, I would actually love to sit down. And I do have a whole like 2 pages of notes, but I would go back and study it after the season. I'll go back and do it anyway because if you missed any of our other videos, that's what has always interested me: the medium of a book versus turn into the medium of movie or TV show. So,
And after our, we do 8 videos here. After 608, we plan on doing some Droughtlander videos too. So
oh
we'll
yeah,
get into some
definitely.
more discussion about some things that we think might happen, and just some other interesting topics that Outlander provides us to talk about.
Yes, and who knows how long Outlander is going to be this time? Hopefully, it won't be 2 years. But with only 8 episodes, we're halfway through the season. This is the fourth episode,
Yeah,
and it's only eight
halfway point.
episodes in. So we're at the halfway point. Just trying to get my notes. What did I want to?
Well, one thing I'll talk about while you look at your notes,
Mhm.
so Jamie, I'm sorry, Ian, uh, they say the Mohawk told him that it was basically his fault that Emily had 2 miscarriages. And of course, we know that today to be not true, at least insofar as they explained it. The spirit has to conquer the woman's spirit. That's, nah, we're not going to go into that. But Ian knows that Claire is a doctor from the future. Why does Ian not go, hey, Claire, just wondering, is this a thing that's real? Like,
Aha! This
oh,
actually comes up in a later book. So,
okay.
I can't
So let's not
remember.
spoil it too much.
Well, it depends. I don't know. Well, I won't spoil it too much, but it depends on how far the seasons go. We kept saying we think they might end next season, especially
Yeah.
being 16 seasons. But I think they would. I think he would. It would make sense if he would bring it up.
Yeah,
But
because, although with the other situations that they mentioned, with uh, Kohet, Coalayton,
I have it written down phonetically. Cahaladan, I believe.
it,
Cahaladan?
it's not like Culloden. It's
No.
it's whatever. But the person who we think is Sun
Cahalodan.
Elk.
Yes.
Uh,
So but I have to. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I have to explain the Sun Elk story.
yeah, we'll get the Sun Elk.
Mhm.
But with him in the picture and being, being with Emily almost immediately, that kind of makes sense. Where even if Ian were to ask Claire about that, the information he gets might not even really be very helpful. Because what's he going to do? Go back
Mhm.
and say, "Hey, it's not my fault. Let me back in." Like, he's not going to do that, obviously.
Yeah, maybe one of those things because he doesn't. I mean, he doesn't immediately go back and know that Claire um knows about the future and knows things. So it might be one of those things where he has to think about it and then ask. Because like again, it's kind of like, what are you gonna do with that information now? Like march back into the village and be like, it's not my fault. My
But he's been
Amy from
thinking
the
about
future.
that since he's been emo Ian. So it's not like just this
Yes,
episode. It's just this episode
right.
where we realize it. Back,
Hmm.
he's had a whole season, a couple years to deal with this and ask Claire.
Hmm. Right. So speaking of Sun Elk, so I refer to him as Sun Elk because that's the character's name in the book. But Cahalodin. I'm actually not sure if it's supposed to be the same character because they don't say what his name is in English. And in the book, he's much more manipulative. He's Emily's brother-in-law. It's Emily's sister's husband. And Emily's sister actually gets kidnapped by the Abenaki, I believe the tribe is. And after his wife gets kidnapped, he kind of like starts moving in on Emily. Um, and just, oh, if viewers forgot, at the beginning of the episode when Ian is talking to Loden, and yes, I have to look up his name every single time, and they're talking about raising a child of a woman. That's the woman, if you remember back in season 4, who had a child with the missionary priest and they burned him and she went on the pyre with him, in case you were wondering who that was. Um, but in the book, he moves in on Emily and he tells Ian that he had a dream in the Mohawk, as I believe most Indian tribes are very, they think dreams are very, what's the word? I don't want to say just important. Dreams are very
Uh,
integral to their beliefs.
yeah, the dream world and the living world is much closer. The veil is very thin between the two.
Right, could be looked at as very prophetic. So Sun Elk tells Ian that he has a dream that his dog Rollo is going to kill him, which is why Ian's Mohawk name is Wolf's brother, is because he has Rollo. So that kind of leaves Ian a bad. Ian has a bad taste in his mouth from that exchange. So there's a lot of bad blood. And they weren't close. So I'm just
You know
gonna
what?
say
You want I'm
Sun
going to
Elk.
do one of these, like, we only
Like
got 4
call it
episodes left.
Kel.
But anytime there's going to be a new Native American name that we're going to struggle for this entire episode to pronounce,
Yes,
I'm just going to get a sound clip of it and have a little button that I push. And so anytime we need to say his name, we just push the button and the person says it for us.
that's amazing. That would work very well. But he was not close to Ian. He was his brother-in-law that he actually didn't trust. So this relationship that he and Ian had in the show is quite different from in the book, which makes them more. There's more conflict in the TV show when it's your friend. It's like your brother that turns around and is with your wife. You
Yeah,
know.
that's interesting that they didn't really go this route. They really portrayed him as kind of a, I almost would have believed that uh, that he would come out and say, "Hey, Ian, I really didn't want to do it, but someone had to be with your wife, since you
Hmm.
couldn't, and I wanted to make sure it was someone who would treat her well, and that's why I took it, because I respect you so much, and I respect her, and I wanted to do the best for both of you. Like, I kind of almost thought they might go down that road, but they
Hmm.
didn't. Although there was like a lot of it did. Did they end on a friendly note, or not? What do you think? Because kind of.
I Well, I don't think it was so much friendly as closure.
Was it
Like
just
that's
like
the thing.
burying the hatchet?
Yeah. Um, kind of an acceptance, I guess. Kind of one of those things where like, yeah, I was really hurt, but this is how it has to be. I really think that Ian's conversation with Jamie and telling Jamie everything that happened, and then Ian struggling with his own identity, being being a Scot, being a Mohawk,
Mhm.
So I really think that what's do you have the next pick?
Of which one?
Did we already do the Jamie Ian one?
Yeah, yeah, we already did that. Here, I'll put it back on
Um,
there just so we can see it.
yeah, put it back on there because that happened. That I think that was a really healing moment for Ian. And then in the book, Brianna, he has the same type of conversation with Brianna, and Brianna says, "I'll ask my dad, Frank Randall, to watch over Isabel." And so when Jamie says, I'll ask Faith to watch for Isabel, I was like, that was very touching. I think that was
Mm.
even more appropriate than Frank Randall, who's
Yeah,
such a jerk in the book.
and
Really. He's very
that was
unlikable.
yeah, that was a powerful, that was a good moment between these two here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jamie, being the very stoic, guy that he is, probably hasn't talked
Mhm.
to anyone about faith, and so
Right.
having someone who he can just kind of have a moment with and empathize with, was probably very good for Jamie too.
Yeah, that's the thing in the book too. Like one of the things that bothered me, and I'm gonna do an episode about changes in the book and the TV show that I liked and didn't like. But one of the things that bothered me was in the book, Jamie was more upset that Claire um had sex with the king than losing his daughter. In the show, he's more upset about Faith. He kind of like is kind of understanding about the king. Like, yeah, I guess you had to do it.
Well, that's
But
kind of, that makes a lot of sense though, like the way this whole thing has gone. Like been a whole lot of messing around on both sides here,
yeah.
um, out of necessity or
Mhm.
force. So I don't really think either of them have much room to like throw barbs at each other with that.
Right. But I think it was really nice for Jamie to bring that up. Um yeah, that's just it was, and I even like this image right here. Like cuz Ian, Jamie has kind of been like a father figure to him obviously. Like he bonds with him more than he bonded with older Ian. I mean, granted Jamie had him, running illegal whiskey and he got him kidnapped and that's how he ended up with the mohawk. But great father figure. Those are bonding moments.
Yep.
So, so I think is that everything I had wanted to say with Ian. I think it was. Was there anything else that you wanted to say about Ian?
No, I'm excited to see where his character goes from here. Now that he's kind of had his closure moment and he's kind of
Mhm.
uphill trajectory from here. Let's go for it. Go for
Mhm.
onward and upward.
Before
So
I The only thing I'm gonna say about Ian is I don't think there's any way that he would have left Rolo with his kin. But did you notice that the dog has not been in a lot of scenes this this season? He was
that
like
is
in
true.
one scene, and I think he's like the kids. Like they just want to remind the audience they're around, but animals and kids are so hard to deal with. They just don't want to use them. Like,
But hey, at least we got a scene with Adso.
did we? I don't think we
Yeah,
saw it though. I mean, I know Donald McDonald is allergic to Adso, but I don't remember seeing
The
him.
opening scene, the opening. Remember, Adso's laying on top of
That's
the.
episode 2 or 3. That was episode two
That's what I
or
said.
3.
In the season, we've seen
Oh,
Adso.
this season. Yes,
Yeah,
yes. And he was with Marcelly too when she was
yeah,
in labor. So,
right.
yeah. Adso's the best. But anyway, so and the only other thing that I really loved was Roger when Roger shot the base or whatever it was. He's like, "Hit it, I hit it," because he's just so terrible with the gun. And I was
Took
like,
me
"Go Roger!"
3 seasons, but I hit my target.
Right. Yeah, we didn't have too much Roger and Bree this episode, but that's okay because I could have done the whole episode with Jamie and Ian and not have to do with Miss Melva or the Christies, but
But yet here we go.
here we go. So bring up Melva with her yeah. Oh, we can cut someone open. Just the look on her face, like, oh, we cut her open.
She's an interesting character. You can tell they're bringing her down an interesting path.
Oh, that's one way of putting it. Cause like I wasn't even sure if they were gonna bring Melva into the show because when I was reading it, because I had seen seasons 1 to 5 before I read it, and then I read it, and I was like, oh, Marceline kind of took over Melva's character as Claire's apprentice, so I thought maybe Melva wasn't even going to be in the show, but her storyline is just so, I don't even know how to put it. You'll see. Yeah. I'm like, they're gonna have to bring this in. But like even when Morsley was helping Claire and she was like at first she was appalled and then, she's like, oh, I understand. And Mel was just straight up like, you can cut him open. Like,
Yeah, like let's do it. Who else can we
and
cut next?
Ryan's like, okay, like settle down.
Yeah, yeah. I'm all for like these kind of characters, and even I'm like, you know what? Let's simmer down just a little bit.
Yeah.
Just take a minute.
So um I'm gonna say that this is not a storyline in the book, but with her being, they're talking about like, oh, they say Claire's a witch and she has spells and stuff. Do you think I had read a theory that do you think Melva will be accused of being a witch?
Oh, oh. I mean, I don't know if she's going to for sure. I'm not going to make that prediction. But I mean, if her dad sees her doing any of this stuff, I mean, I don't know because he already knows that Claire's not a witch, and so if Melva is practicing under Claire, it's hard to say that she's a witch too. But that's just for Tom. That doesn't count all the other villagers
Who,
who think
who
Claire's
wanted
a
to
witch.
drown? Yeah, who wanted to drown a baby
Yeah,
because he was different.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
So
who thinks the baby will catch fire or something. Yeah, or
right.
it'll burn them.
So we have like Melva checking out her books and stuff, and I'm starting to wonder is your interest in the workings of the human body? You know?
Oh, I'm sure it is. It's just, is it in a Claire way or in a Dexter kind of way?
That's a good reference. So, and then we have the end scene. Okay, well, so first of all, before we get to the end scene, remember how she was creeping outside the window when Tom was getting his surgery, right? And
Yeah,
like,
that's
I
her
think
her shtick, I guess. She creeps. She's a creeper.
right, and I'm sure the audience is like, oh, like she probably wants to see her dad suffer because he's like whipping her with a belt and whatnot.
That's what I
But
thought.
then we have this voyeur. Like, I don't think her interest is in the anatomical way of intercourse. I think the look on her face, she's a creeper.
Yeah, there's no better way to say it. Like right
Yeah.
now, without getting like just vulgar. And
Yeah.
she's very interested in what's happening on the other side of those bars.
That's yeah. I thought that she was going to be in the surgery, like reading through Claire's books, especially stuff. Um, we know that some of the stuff that Claire has can be poisonous. There was that, I forget what did when Ian first came back, he had that stuff he was thinking about killing
Was it
himself.
hemlock?
Hemlock? Yeah, I think it was. It was something. I thought she was gonna go through um her books and find her like herbs and stuff, and nope. Creeping, being a voyeur, being a peeping Tom. So so Melva, uh yeah. So that's all I gotta say about that. I was just gonna make some I was gonna make some predictions before we do that. Ryan, has your impression of Melva changed after this scene? Because you were like, she's interested in being empowered, and that was like her main reason for working with Claire. Now that you've
Yeah.
seen her, like,
I
what's your impression of her
I
now?
I still kind of stick to that, but I'll temper that a little bit by saying her empowering is taking as much into her control as possible, because as a woman back there, she had very little into her control. So learning everything she can about the medicine, both the things that heal and the things that can hurt, and the things that can knock you unconscious and make while you get cut into, things like that. And then this scene, where she is
Being a
learning
creep.
as well. I don't know. She obviously she looks like she's, I don't want to say plotting, but like she has some interest that's more than just like a physical arousal. That it's what it
Mm-hmm.
looks like.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see with Melva. So make some predictions for next episode. I One of my predictions, I'm gonna walk back. I don't Obviously Honored Christian did not die in this episode. The reason I thought that though is because I had seen a short clip of Lauren Lyle, and it's spelled Caesar, but it's like Cesar, who plays Fergus. Lauren Lyle had said something. She's that episode 604 was really important and really like brought out her acting chops basically. But I think when they filmed that interview, maybe they didn't have the episode numbers yet, so she meant 603, which was, an amazing part on both her part and Fergus's part. So I walk back my Honored Christian's gonna die.
Okay,
At
do you
least
now?
not this season.
Do you, are you still gonna say? Are you still gonna say he's gonna die sometime in this season, or we're just gonna say like let's write that one off for now?
I'm gonna hold off on it because he does in the book. Spoiler in the book, in book 8 does die. But he might not in the TV show, especially if it doesn't go to season 8. So I did say that this episode we would find out what happened with Ian, his story, and we did. Next episode is Give Me Liberty. So there'll be a barbecue we saw Joe Costa. We'll see a barbecue at Joe Costa, celebrating Flora McDonald, who's an historic character who helped Prince Charlie escape after Culloden. We'll see John Gray. Yay. I like David Barry. I'm not. I thought I was like in the minority. I'm not a huge fan of the character of John Gray. I found that there's other people out there that feel the same way I do, so I don't feel as bad. But I can separate a character and not like a character, but really enjoy the actor. Like I think David Barry does a really great job. Just like I think Jessica Reynolds does a really great job with Melva. But anyway, we'll see him. I'm trying to figure out what the hell he's doing at Joe Costa's at this barbecue. I have no idea.
It's like the beach scene. Like they're just making this up whole cloth.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know why he would be there celebrating someone who helped Prince Charlie escape. It was bizarre. But anyway, guess we'll find out. I think the Lizzie storyline will continue. That's a storyline that I don't have time to get into it now, but let's just say it cannot. You and I talked about this off camera, that the Wades in the book will not fly on TV with the audiences. I don't think they're gonna have to change it up. And after that storyline plays out, then I'll talk about what happened in the book and why it's different. Um, and the other thing I didn't have written down, but I think there'll be an incident either in Wilmington or in Cross Creek. There's an incident in the book where Jamie prevents someone from being tarred and feathered. I think something like that will happen. Because Jamie's still like, I think Jamie just doesn't want to fight. You know, he knows that the revolution's gonna succeed, but there's
The end of this episode, I mean, it seems pretty obviously he's going to choose a side. He comes out and directly says, I can't sit on the fence like this. I can't be the double agent anymore.
Well, there's a clip of this Flora speaking, and she is encouraging the Scottish, or mostly Highlanders there, and she's encouraging them to not rebel because look what happened before. And so these factions start showing up at this barbecue, and the divisions start really showing through. So at least that's how in the book, and I think it is how it's going to play on the show. So we're halfway through the season already. And, I have one more prediction. I think at the end of next episode, no, it can't be. It has to be soon, though. I think the secondary, I'm sorry, I'm going to be done. The secondary story is going to be Brianna and Roger and Amy McCullum. Because we saw a preview of that. Bree's getting upset of how much time Roger is spending. So.
And that makes total sense to me. It's another one of those things where, like, dude, you're in, like, the 18th century hanging out at some woman's place. You can't do that. You can't do that.
Right.
What are you doing?
Well, it's funny because in the book in season 5, when Philip Wiley is like pawing all over Claire, Jamie actually gets upset with Claire because Claire is like, back then, if she was just talking to Philip Wiley, but back then it would have been seen as like flirting, and she felt that she didn't do anything to lead him on, whereas everyone at Jocasta's wedding was telling Jamie, "Did you see your wife? She went into the stables alone with him. Like, you don't do that."
Yeah.
So, well, anyway, I'm looking forward to next week. I still think there'll be a break in between 2 episodes. It won't be next week. I already checked the schedule and it's already gonna air. So
maybe the last week. Maybe they'll, after 607, they'll skip a week and then make us wait for the finale.
Maybe. I'm wondering what the finale will be. All right, so
okay.
That's just me thinking. So good times, and looking forward to next week.
Yep. See y'all at 6:05.
All right, bye.
Bye.